Pulse are crowned Netball Super League champions 2025.
Welcome to Off the Court, and Tracey, we're in the studio today. They've let us loose in London. What's going on?
I thought I'd come and pay you a visit, Tamsin, particularly after the game at weekend. I thought it was a good time to come down to London and see you in person.
You've gone there. So usually we record our podcast remotely. Today we're in the studio in Sky, and let's get straight into it then. Round one of the Netball Super League done and dusted. Did you watch all 4 games?
Yes, I did watch all 4 games.
Yeah.
I did feel there was a lot of things that probably we need to chat about today.
Do you think?
I think the interesting thing for me was we talked about the coaches' approach in the Team Girls Cup and how they were going to approach it, what the learnings, what they were going to take into that weekend. I think the changes had a massive impact on a few of the teams in respect to the change in momentum and also the change in the result, but also the super shot.
We'll get into it. Look, there was wins for Pulse, Forest, Loughborough and Rhinos, and probably on paper they were what everyone was expecting. Games weren't quite as some were closer than others, some were not quite as we expected. We'll start with Thunder Pulse. That was the first game of the round. Pulse came out on top. Sophie Fawn single-handedly got them that bonus point at the end, though. 8 super shots she scored in that game. What an impact.
Yeah, and what the necessity when you miss a key player. They've obviously signed her for that potential impact. I think she was the absolute orchestra of that attack. And I did like what Manchester Thunder had done. They'd obviously gone away. They'd obviously worked against Pulse. I think it was a big ask for them to take that win that weekend. I think it was a really big ask, but looking at the lack of familiarity, Sophie Fawn's coming back into the team. I think what we saw was, though, and this was probably one of the changes that I thought was probably the key. The first quarter Pulse went out and took that. Second quarter, then I thought Thunder really come back and they were sort of getting a little bit of rhythm.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say this because I think the changes in the third quarter were the right decision, because do you want to see them combinations early? So obviously they moved forms back to shooter. Yeah. They had a bit more speed around their attacking end. But I actually thought that was the instigator of Pulse getting on top as well. And it was whether you would have left that combination just to familiarise yourselves, bearing in mind that 2 of the players don't have game time, but is the first game the one where you start to form your formations, building into obviously where you want to be, which it's in the final.
And a game that might not actually matter come the end of the season if you believe Pulse are going to be in there. And I think that is a management piece as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and you'd like to say at this point that London Pulse are going to be in that final. So to lose against the top team is probably not where you want to be at this moment. And, when you go out, and you've got 8 teams in the NSL, you do tend to cherry pick the ones that are actually must wins, and that probably isn't a must win for them at this particular stage. And London Pulse v Manchester Thunder away has almost been a Manchester Thunder ick. So,
We'll talk more about icks in a minute, Tracey, I promise. Well, looking at NIC Rhinos then versus Panthers, that was a must-win game, right? If they're tipping to make top 4 at the end of it. And they came out on top, pretty much kept their consistent combination together. We saw Simone Gordon, the new Jamaican, over there. Really low on super shots, though. It was only 4-1 super shots, 4 to Rhinos.
I don't think they had a lot of impact in both. Obviously, Harriet Jones was obviously out with concussion, so obviously, she was pretty vital in their super shots. I think for me, it was good that Harriet Jones was out for Leeds Rhinos, because what it enabled is Simone Gordon to establish herself. It's her first NSL contract.
They got better feeding.
And they did get better feeding. I think the disappointment for me around it was that we're sort of recognising where we are in respect to the team. So Birmingham Panthers made so many changes, and also the changes for me were quite significant. And I think the teams that now are being found out is that when you don't have a high volume shooter, you've got a little bit of a problem. So when they bring Matoru and Rothwell on, both of them, their history is low volume shots. They're more game players. They're more feeding a tall shooter, and they're not really on the mark. Yeah. So can you afford to put them on together? even if Betsy Creeks is not playing, because she's actually a pinpoint. And I think they missed that a little bit.
Yeah, I was impressed with Betsy as well. And sorry, it was Rhinos that only got that one super shot, still came out on top of the game. So you can see when you have a target shooter like Gordon, she only had 33 shots in the end, but it gave them some stability.
Yeah. And did Paige Reed really need to save a super shot? Because I actually don't think at any point...
Funny story, Trace, whether your shooters actually do need to shoot super shots or not.
Well, that's a discussion we need to get into
we're
get to
coming.
Your game, Tamsin.
Don't worry, we're getting there. So Loughborough Dragons then, complete flip. Loughborough came out on top, dominant. Sammy Wallace-Joseph again, absolutely brilliant. 15 super shots they had in that game. Should we talk about the defence of that?
Do you know what? I actually think Amex should have sponsored someone not marking a super shot. I swear we would have made more money. Because honestly, if I see
Dragons
another
had one
defender...
of the best, but Dragons had one of the best defence of the super shots last year. So where's that gone? 15 super shots. What happened? I need to go back and watch that properly.
Yeah, it's really difficult, and I reflect on SSN for this, for me, in respect to when I was at the Adelaide Thunderbirds and the Mavericks, and when the game's blown out, is there a necessity to mark a super shot? Do you know what I mean? And,
yeah, okay.
But their influence over that, and they knew at that point that, again, didn't have a high volume shooter in the shooting circle. Although I do like the Yarrington and McCall combination, I don't think they have a high volume shooter.
Yeah.
And that is going to create problems for people, because what's going to do, you're on the lifeline of a super shot. And when you start doing super shots, then you start missing, then it goes to the other end. And then against Loughborough Lightning, like their pre-season has been phenomenal, because they look the fittest and best I've ever seen them.
Dragons still put 60 goals on the board. So it's going to be interesting. I think we need to keep an eye on that, because like you said, it almost flowed better than what Panthers were trying to do with the rotating circle, who only got 39 goals. Yeah. But it's difficult.
It is difficult.
So go on then. The last game of the round. I think another game happened as well on Saturday.
You do have to reflect on that. Was actually a very, very
it was
good
a great game
to watch.
Do you know how many messages I had saying, wow, what an advert for netball? I was like, brilliant.
I also feel that any game that's got one goal in it, any game that's obviously, you know, tennis ball. I actually think Mavs, Tamsin, I'm sat here pretending you're not the Mavericks coach sat here, but I actually think you lost it in that second quarter, going into that second quarter, because, you know, you were 29-23 up. And this is where you have to be tactically astute as a shooter. And if your shooters are not tactically astute, then one of your mid-court has to be in that about what you're actually driving for. There was two situations. You had the opportunity to go into halftime 31-23 up. Mm-hmm. You took the chance of making two super shots. And do you know, at one point I nearly threw the shooter through the TV. I was like, what are you doing? What you've done then is you've then brought Rolene back into the game, because she obviously flowed into the second half. And then the key instigator for me, and I never actually thought this would happen. Obviously, you made the change in the mid-court, and what did they do? They brought Iona Christian on, the most experienced, probably Super League player, and they just then got momentum building into that half time. And I think that's probably where some of the changes actually happened. And then, you know, I thought then it'd become a really contested game. I thought you absolutely drove it in that first half, and I think you had the momentum to continue through. But then you were challenging someone like Rolene Struker. So, and you weren't marking your super shots, by the way.
Well, spoiler alert, we lost that game 60-59 after leading for pretty much most of the game, well, all of the game. Really interesting, some of the things you've talked about. So when you talk about controlling that first half, first quarter, our turnover to goal was 33%. So we didn't punish them in that first quarter at all. That massively improved as the game went on. Our actual centre pass to shot across the game was 80%. If I'd have woken up Saturday morning and you'd sent me those stats before the game, I'd have hands down told you we'd have won it. Yeah. But controlling the super shot and lead as an experience is massive. I actually pulled a Tracey Neville moment during that second quarter when they came off at half time, and I was like, about controlling the super shot, because we were 7 up. We had an opportunity to take a 1-pointer. We decided to pass it out. And anyway, we went in 5 up at half time, and that ultimately killed us. But I actually went, I am not joking now. I am not actually. And, you know, that is an experience thing. And my shooters will take that on the chin. My mid-court, the same. We're having those conversations. But it's a learning piece at the moment.
It is a learning piece. And I feel at the moment, the Super League is still in that moment that when you hit super shot time, that you have to shoot a super shot. Now, there was a situation in that game where I did think Rolene should have shot a 1 point. Yeah. And I think that would have then forced you, put a lot of pressure on you. And she shot a super shot. And I used to say to my shooters, if you are going to take that risk, you make sure that gets in, because honestly, that will be a hair-drying moment. And I think, you know, and I don't want to take out that naturalness of a shooter.
And this is where it's difficult.
Yeah, it
because
is very
when
difficult.
they go to me sometimes, I'm in the flow. I'm like, brilliant.
Yeah.
Can you be in the flow and score it?
And there is that mindset of
Yeah.
it. But then I think when you're in the flow, it also needs the experience of one of your mid-court or one of your...
Because even if you are, you can still take the one to control the
And
score.
I always call it your fat controller that just goes, like, irrespective of whether you're in that flow, I'm a mid-court and I just go, we are going, one. And then you work it to the one.
Yeah.
The hardest thing for me is when I saw that the ball just keep coming out and in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's a point where you've missed a super shot. The ball, you got worked. They did a really great job at one point. Retief, that changed by, Retief, I thought she'd come on really well to say she's not had a lot of game time. And they made you work the ball round. And that is when, and you went for a super shot when your shooters had just been ragged. And that is where you just go, do you know what, we'll just consolidate here and do one. Let's get our breath back. Let's get our formation back. Then go to centre pass. So there's different situations where you use the super shot, and I think at the moment we're still in that mindset that when that buzzer goes, we'll just hit it.
Well, I think you can see from the inconsistency across the games this week to have as high as 15 in one and as low as 1 in another. Like, that's pretty insane, and I think it is only going to get better. I've actually got better with losing, right? So this is really interesting. I was having this conversation.
So you didn't look it on the telly when you were being interviewed.
So it's really funny because obviously I wanted to win that game. The team wanted to win that game. We were gutted. We should have won that game. However, over the years, and I wanted to ask your question on this, because over the years I've got a lot more chilled about losing. Like, you kind of have to, as you sort of get older, you mature a bit, it becomes slightly different as you coach. But there's one ick, and I'm going to talk about it because I feel it's a bit like therapy today. If I get it out of my system, it might be okay. I spoke to Sarah Francis Bayman yesterday, and I went, the one thing that still bugs me about winning, she went, losing.
Have you just name dropped?
Yeah, I did. I'm waiting for yours later.
Okay, yeah.
The one thing that bugs me about losing, and she went, is it the other team winning? I'm like, no, not that. I'm deal with the umpire decisions and the craziness that your team do and my decisions and all that reflection. But it's when the other team celebrate. I know I'm the worst. Like, if I win, I'm like, yes, and I was annoying on court and I was fist pumping.
Does it bring back memories to like 2014?
Don't. So I've still got memories of you.
When I just run on that court.
Double fist pumping around. So you doing that in 2014, etched at PTSD, honestly. And the other one, and I was in labour at this time, but my team had got through to the semi-final, so they're sending me messages, and we lost to Dragons. And we didn't make the final. And it's the first time in a few years we haven't made the final. And my manager sent me the video of Dragons doing the conga in front of our bench at the end. So it's my little net. And Forest celebrated, and rightly so. It was such a good game. But God, it gave me the ick. So I'm asking what yours is.
Well, we didn't win that many at Mavericks, and probably in the first stage of my England career. So every win was like a championship win. Do you know what was really key though? And I take my learnings from the Mavericks when we won. Everything was inaugural for us. So I want to see now Nottingham Forest next week what they come off that game, because what we used to say at the Mavericks was we are on such a high after winning.
Yeah.
The celebration, the momentum, the adrenaline, and it does feel like a World Cup. But what is the reaction to that? What's the come down? So Nottingham Forest this weekend, what is their momentum going into that game? Because it's how you manage them emotions. 1 point games always drive that emotion to anybody.
They do.
If they'd have won by 15, they'd have just shook hands, walked off, pleased with the win, got on the coach home. Whereas when it was a 1 point game, the way they'd come back, the way it started to swing momentums, I think it was a lot different. But for me, it's can they manage that emotion now going into this game, and it's the next one. And you talk about that like day in, day out competition at like international level, but clubland, it's different because at international level, the day after, you're still on that emotion. You can actually still build on momentum.
But with this, you get a whole week.
Now
break.
You've got a whole week.
I always said this, like, you actually learn more from winning than you do from losing. So when you lose, you dissect everything, and it's like you break that down. When you win, it's often like, oh, we won, and it's like, yeah, brilliant, and you just kind of move on rather than actually looking at, like I said, some of the stats was scary from our point of view. So actually, there's still so much there. If we'd have won by 1, would I still reflect in the same way? So it is quite an interesting fact. I want to focus a little bit on the game and the games this weekend and go into a bit more of a broader topic. I want to talk about the physicality, and this is no dig at any team, right? Because the game has changed. We are more physical. And interestingly enough, I would have said ours was quite a high physical game, and yet Forest had the lowest penalty count across the rounds this year, this week. They were on 42 penalties. The highest, I think, was Loughborough that were on. Was it Loughborough? Yeah, I think 65. Anyway, 42 to 65 is quite a big shift across the first round. I was chatting to someone afterwards who comes from the rugby world, and they went to me, if Rowley and Struker played in rugby, someone would wipe her out, because you couldn't have someone that's that good at the super shot just like willy-nilly running around the circle nailing super shot. Someone would clatter her, right? And it got me thinking, how far away are we from doing that? Do you think it's already happening? Do you think we've got potential now? The game now the game's going more pro.
As I nod here.
But you know, I'm an attacking coach. I love coaching clean defence. No one's an angel, but I mean, it's not my way. And actually, in our game was really interesting because they ground us down, and that level of experience and leadership. Tash Pravlin is an exceptional player. She ground us down, like the hits off the ball, and even some of the big moments. Like there was a big moment where we got an intercept. It was called a contact. The arm was hooked. It was clear arm hook. They got away with it. It's fine. It's what happens. But it just got me thinking, like, there's so much of that going around now. Like, where is the line on this physicality? And when you were at Melbourne Mavericks, you got a lot of stick in your first year. 81 penalties against Vixens in one of your games.
You just quoting, throwing these back at me now.
Well, I had to after the Forest debrief.
Look, we really looked at this. Just to recognise, I was the attacking coach, by the way, Tamsin.
Nice.
You know, we had the assistant coach,
So
Nicole Richardson,
you're
who
Nicole
actually
under the
managed
bus
that
here.
defence. So I'm actually throwing it into her court at the moment. But just looking at this, like from my perspective, it's where them contacts are happening. So I'll go back to your point where about taking the player out, and that probably was that. If you're going to do a contact, make sure it's worthwhile.
Really a good one.
Do you know? Yeah. Make sure it's worthwhile. Make sure you're contesting for the ball, and make sure that if you're going to take the player, you're going to take them. We actually looked at where the penalties are happening. Yeah. Now, I definitely don't know they're happening on the shot in the Super League, so they must be happening on the body, because nobody's being blown out for marking anything on the shot in this league, right? So that's the first thing for me. So, and it's also the area of the court. So, you know, nobody in a defensive formation, you never want one of your players blown out.
Yeah.
So that is really, really key for us. We a lot of ours at Mavericks were silly things, you know, late on the ball, like just body management. But it also could be that the pace of the game is changing.
But this is what I wanted to say.
And the skill level of the game changing. So matchups of players, I would say that. I actually thought that when Peckover was on, I thought it was probably a lot more wider open. When they brought Retief on, that's when Pavlin went tighter on. So actually that changed what was happening.
But there was so much off the ball, and this is what I'm saying. So the thing you've just talked about, like a player per player contest going, it's a late, it's a skill thing, it's a technical. Yeah. That I can cope with. What's happening, a lot of the stuff that Forest didn't get blown for, they kept in structure because it's off the ball. So our goal attack would throw the ball, she'd go to enter the circle, and she'd get bashed by the wing defence constantly. Now that is a grind down consistently. I'm not saying it shouldn't happen, but like where. So
Tam, this is where the physiological makeup of the player has to happen. So in it, you know, from an attacking player, if you're in a situation, and it's hard when you've got a prop shooter, and it's hard when you're in one of them static roles, but if you're on court, you're moving all the time. Do you know what I mean? So you cannot afford in this league, and I'll give you a prime example. There was an incident against Middleton and Wallace in the Loughborough Lightning v Dragons game, and that was very, very similar to the situation against Jock and KD in the Mavericks situation, and we actually showed it Sharon Kelly, one of the umpires. So what happened was ball was up the other end coming down. KD was absolutely hammering it, and I saw Middleton on Wallace in this, and I was actually watching the precursor to the actual attacking contact happen. So they were absolutely hammering her. They were on each other, on each other, on each other.
Push,
hook, whatever, like whatever. What happened was when the ball come and the ball was dispersed, obviously the umpire's looking at a wingspan. What happened was, as the ball went, Jock went like that to get her arm and then to catch the ball. Same situation with Wallace. What happened was attacking contact Wallace, attacking contact Jock. So then I spoke to Sharon Kelly, because she come into our training that week, and I showed her the precursor to that actually happening. Now, is that the umpire's fault? I don't think it can, because their vision, they have like a line of vision that
all
they have
you
to
can see is when the ball
and we did
goes.
talk about the 3 umpire rule. You know what I mean? The 3 umpire rule. Do we ignore it? Well, sometimes it's quite impactful in the game. And I'm not talking like players now. Come on, man up. 60 minutes. I love it.
There is an element,
I absolutely love that challenge, that build up, that momentum. That's what the game wants to see. when it's impacting sort of scorelines, and you talk the minute percentages at SSN, it does impact. And it also, what happens is you're starved of ball for shooters as well, because they don't touch the ball that much, particularly the prop shooter.
And let's talk about the mental frustration of that as well. Like when you've been hammered, and then you get an attacking contact, you're like, are you serious? Do you know what I mean? It has an effect.
It does have an effect, but and it's hard to get away from, particularly being hooked. And as a prop shooter, that is really difficult. So we actually had a conversation about it.
What did Sharon Kelly say?
She actually agreed with me. She actually looked at it, and like I say, this is not a criticism.
This is what I mean. It's not a criticism. Of
So
individuals.
how do we manage that as a game?
Well, we've all got to do it, haven't we?
We've all got to manage it, but also like, there is a lot of attacking players who give a lot back as well. So is it a discussion? And this is where money in the sport, more investment, more commercial, because what support are we putting around the collective group of the sport? And the collective group, like if you think about the three things that make up a sport, it's obviously like the commercial part, the players, and then obviously the team white. And it's like, what do we want to see? And what do we don't want to see? And we don't want players sent off.
No.
We don't want players sent off.
It doesn't work.
We don't want to stop the contest. I don't want to stop that contest. I don't want to stop the off-ball contest. I absolutely love it. That is why I loved SSN, like as a coach.
Yeah, because it's
I loved it. It was level. Like, and it thrills the crowd. Oh, look at them, look at them, look at them, look at them. And it prepares the player. But there is a little bit of a conversation about, and we don't want to precursor it now, because what will happen is someone will listen to this podcast and go, I'm going to look out for
and that's
that Middleton thing, because I think Middleton did a good job on Wallace in that situation.
But it's part of the game. Yeah. I think my frustration when everyone goes, what's the worst rule? I'm like, attacking contact, because an attacker that got rode for a long periods of 60-minute games, if I turn around and put a ball in your face once, like it was granted. Do you know what I mean? I'd never
it was
start
obvious though, Tamsin.
I was never good.
It was always attacking contacts with you. Do you know, like, I used to be on Malks, you know what I mean? You used to push your way through. You thought it was a brick wall. What are you on about?
I'm going to bring video into next week.
Yeah, exactly.
But funny enough, I remember playing a game with Rachel Dunn a few years ago. Actually, interesting, it was Dragons again, and there was a keeper that always used to hook the arm. And again, I won't mention who it is, but she did. She hooked the arm. That's what she did. So Rach was getting very frustrated, right? And so I told her to go on, and I love this. I told her to go on and just put her hands up in the air. So she stood for that quarter. You know, Rach.
Like a like a 5-year-old when she starts netball.
I've not got it. And she was brilliant. But I think for me, what has really started to change in my coaching is like, actually, you can't beat them, join them. So there is an element where there is stuff that I'm going to have to coach now, that I'm going to have to say to youngsters coming through, like, you can do this and you can do that, but you're going to have to.
But Tamsin, it all builds up in the warm-up. Like, if you'd have seen our changing room prior to going out on an SSN court, you know, there was rugby bags in there, like, you know, everything. Now, if you look at mid-court when they're preparing now at international, and to be honest, I didn't really home in on, you know, other teams, but particularly us, we're grappling. Yeah. You know, a lot of our warm-ups about grappling, ways of getting your arms out, ways of making yourself like available, moving away, step. You know, if a shooter just stands there getting hooked, like, can she change her angles, change her stance? Now, you do say then she's not interested in the ball, but that's what intelligence does. Like, Joe Hatton was the best at it. Yeah. You know, but I never once saw Joe Hatton got harm up.
But this is the point. It's experience, right? And one of the things that I'm working with my team in the minute is they're a young group, so actually they learn on the job, and it comes back to that point. Yeah, we lost by 1 goal, but we learned so much. Yeah. And I did as a coach as well. I want to talk post round 1, looking at team of the week. Some quality players in there. One thing I noticed that was really interesting, there was only 1 full-out England player in that team of the week from round 1, and there was 10 available that had been on that South Africa tour. And there's a lot of sort of comments going around at the minute that they look quite tired or kind of out of it at the moment, some of those players. Now, I'm quite interested with that because it's Commonwealth Games year. They've had a busy international season. They're back in their club environment now, and this is the time when they should be shining. And I'm not saying that those players that got in Team of the Week didn't deserve to be in there. There were some great performances, and I'm not expecting England players in every week. However, it was quite a bit of an eye-opener for me that I was looking around thinking, it's a really big year. This is your platform to be playing well, consistently well. And there was a big player management piece around that. And I was wondering, when you were in charge heading into that 2018 Commonwealth Games, would it be a concern if one of your players was looking quiet or not quite with it at the moment?
Yes. The thing we used to manage quite a lot within England, obviously, is players not playing well. We probably had a system around that, a support system around that. So we used to ensure that they, as soon as they finish their international, and I don't know what actually happens now.
Yeah.
I can only speak from SSN.
Yeah.
And obviously from what we used to do.
We want to know about that though, please.
Yeah. So I at SSN didn't get any feedback on England players. That was quite simple. So obviously we had Sasha and Elle. So when they come out of tour, we generally didn't get a meeting until the March.
Okay.
I don't know what I know you got offered a lot more, maybe because you weren't obviously in Australia. So as soon as they would come out, we always had a weekly check-in. So whenever they left camp, they always got a feedback system we used to go Monday, Thursday. They got a feedback to the clubs on a Thursday. So that was all around their physical, mental well-being. They almost got a phone call if we felt that there was a little bit of a problem with the player. So you just trying to get that real communication with the coach that we felt I could just pick up the phone. It was never just done. Obviously black and white in writing, and then as soon as they left England camp, they also then got the option. They got a phone call and they also got an email as well on that. I think then we obviously do a lot behind the scenes, obviously through AMS, and we monitor the well-being of that. And there was a huge staff group around that on a weekly basis. I would generally, if I felt, I would probably just send a check to the player, but I also wanted to communicate the coach because I felt that the head coach was more the involver in that, because sometimes you're not, because you're so far away from it as a national coach, you don't want to go straight to the player without going through the head coach first and just understanding the situation. So I would always put in potentially a call to you, Tamsin, if it was one of your players, and I'd just say just checking in, doesn't look at behaviours. And I'm such a behaviours coach. Sarah Bayman, key example, and she was Sarah Bayman at the time, by the way, so I haven't got that name wrong. I could tell when we watched on that coach what I was going to get on court with her that day. The behaviours of the coach, whether they changed it is just a huge thing in me. And I can almost tell with body language as well. So it would be a check-in with the coach first, just making sure, is there anything I need to be aware of? Coach would probably be, are you all right if I reached out to her? And I might reach out to her. Or we did have a really great wellbeing person as well, who they were really familiar with, and it would come through that. I think for me, they've been starved a lot of entry into clubs. Yeah. That's the messaging that I'm getting at the moment. So that familiarity is probably something that is a bit of a shock. Also, club coaches need to understand, when you've been in international calendar, it is really hard to come back to club netball. And even as a coach, that was one of probably my hardest things.
Because you want them to come back in excited to be there, wanting to bring all that experience to your team, play really well. And actually, they're tired and they need a bit of a break. You're going, well, I've only had you for like 3 sessions. Get on with it. It's really difficult.
But there's also support from club coaches, and that's sticking up for international as well, is that you sometimes want to play in a different way. Conflicting messages in the way you want to play. Hard. What's the expectation from the player? You've also been playing with potentially a top caliber player. You've got used to playing with someone. Playing with Helen Housby is completely different to playing with a goal attack maybe in their club team. Availability. There's so many things that need to happen, and what happens is we expect that transition is really difficult for them players, and I wanted it. And we created a system where we wanted it as smooth as possible. So external services, we made that difference that only one person would deal, and it would either be from an international, from an England perspective, or from a club perspective. What they wouldn't have is they'd go from one strength and conditioning coach to another strength and conditioning coach to another. So many different, it's just so hard for players.
You need that routine.
It's tiring to keep explaining what you need. So we tend to keep that consistency of care off the court really stable. Obviously, with the club coaches as well, we would be really clear on them. This is what we're working on. If you're in conflict with that, right, look at how we can manage that when they come into the conflict. So if I wanted it to fly and you wanted it to be man on, how can we manage that? And how can we make sure that we had a one messaging? It takes a lot of time. It does take a lot of time. It takes a lot of exhaustion. But I feel that it did well support the player. We definitely were never perfect, and there's probably times when people could criticise us on that.
I don't think you ever can. I think this is the biggest thing of coaching. Actually, one of the interesting parts when I went back into head coaching this year. My biggest concern as a working mum with 2 young kids is how much time the player management takes up, and I love it because once I'm in, I'm invested. So I love my team like they're my kids, right? They are my family. So for this next 4 months, and I get it from people who I know very, very well that will be like, oh, you're like a different Tamsin once you're in season. I'm like, well, yeah, because that's my family right there. Like they're the people that I need to make feel good every single day, and that's exhausting at times. Like even last week, you know, we're all nervy. It's the first game of the season. I went out for peppermint tea with one. I went on a car journey with another. I had a phone call with another. Like, I mean, it's constant. And it matters, right? Absolutely matters.
Absolutely matters.
Understanding how people tick, making that fit into a team, not only how they play, but how they mentally fit in is huge.
Tamsin, the one lesson I learned at international level when I was international coach is...
Don't do it.
Don't go back into it. No. The one thing I learned is you don't have the same relationship with your international players as you do as a club coach.
Yeah, okay.
So that going out for coffee, it's really difficult to happen as an international coach. And probably someone like Stacey Marinkovic finds that even harder because she doesn't even have the players in international season. She has them come in and go out. And you've got so much to manage. You say yourself, when they're in the mode, they've got so much to manage. So the whole of that is you do not have that same relationship. So the quickest way you can get to a player is through the club coach.
Yeah.
That's the quickest way you can get to a player. Tell me everything about this player. What does she need? What makes her tick? Because there is a personal level on that. So I probably man-marked a lot of them. Some didn't like it, Tamsin. I think you were one of them persons who didn't really like me coming in. But I did come in because I needed to form a relationship. I needed to see there was a working relationship between us all about that particular player. And if there was a conflict, that's when that really mattered. So that was the first thing that I learned. The second thing that I learned, which was really hard for me as an international coach, is players like being in their clubs.
Yeah.
They do like being in their clubs. So
it's familiar, feels like.
Well, it feels like home.
Yeah.
It feels like home to them. It's a level of play where they actually excel in. Yeah. So it's really, and that's the other thing that's hard at international.
They excel there, which is why they get picked for England, right?
Exactly. And I always say this about a kid, right? You know, we're easy to escalate kids. So if we take a 13-year-old child and she plays, and I see this all the time, she's playing at under 16 level. She then becomes ordinary. Because what happens is she's not ordinary because she's 13. And that's what it says, she's only young. Yeah. But she becomes ordinary. So what coaches don't want to do is they're like, well, we want her for us. Just put her back maybe once every month, twice a month into that 13-year-old netball.
And let her
because
thrive.
What she does is she flies.
Yeah,
and then she becomes brilliant. And everyone's going, oh my God, we love her. We love Tracey. How amazing is she? Oh, we played against Tracey. Oh, she absolutely...
I love how you're naming us you.
Well, that's how it used to be because I played, at 12-year-old, I played under 21 netball.
Yeah.
Do you know? And they did escalate you a little bit faster when I was younger because we didn't have any junior clubs. But that is how you feel, Tamsin.
Yeah.
And so club netball is a place where they do excel because they become the key instigator. And that is the difficult thing to manage when you're international coach because you're like, you know, when you look at and Amy Carter, she excels in her club because she's the best centre.
Yeah.
When she comes to England, at the moment, she's not picked as the best centre. That mentally is a struggle for her. So I think that is one thing that was really hard for me as an international coach to manage.
It's one of the things I talk to the players about all the time. Performance netball is not fun in lots of ways. It is a hard yards. I spoke like just generally about my career. Like you work really hard to get into England, right? And you get there and it's like, yes. Then you want to stay in the squad. Like staying in the squad is just as hard, like harder than getting in there, right? Because then you have to perform at that level against people that are better than you. Then you're in it, and then you want to play. And then when you get the start, you want to stay on. And then just as you become like the established wing attack, a new kid comes through who's knocking at your door, or a new wing defence comes and plays for New Zealand and Australia that takes you out the game. You're like, it's never ending. And it's not for the faint-hearted. Like it's a brutal reality.
Yeah.
So keeping players happy and understanding that well-being is a massive part of the game.
Yeah, and as an international coach, sometimes I was glad to get rid of the players back to club coaches.
You haven't.
You're like, could I manage this anymore? But them are the real massive lessons learned. And I saw that as a club coach.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I think you said like you didn't like England coming in. I think the battle for me with club in England is always that the battle it feels like sometimes is that everyone's pulling, and you're there for a job. You know, like I'm in a professional job now. I need to win. That's how I keep my job. That's how that works. So, you know, when you're getting all these external things that are affecting that, it's very hard. Now, you get more chilled out the longer you've been in the business, and you realise that, you know, the wins come in lots of different ways. I mean, in terms of like,
I don't think one moment when I was at the Mavericks that I felt I could go and sit on a sunbed with my sunglasses.
Did you not do that? No,
I would have loved an armchair and a cigar at some point.
This is much easier, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I think in terms of you've been there, done it. So like you know the patterns, you know the journeys, you know the behaviours to go on. But I think we're all slightly control freaks, and looking after those players, you feel like you can do it in the best way, and that's where it becomes difficult.
And you know, and it's difficult for players now because they are starting to step up to being professional. There's a lot of demands on them individuals. But what we have to remember is that they're one person. They're not a jigsaw puzzle that basically, you know, England takes something, club takes something, their personal life takes a lot as well.
Well, that's the other thing.
And then you just go, oh, we'll just piece you back. You know, I'll just take that piece. They're actually one person, and the best managed players are those that feel like they're not a jigsaw puzzle. They feel like they're actually being managed as one. And I think that is the key. That's the massive key learning from what I took.
Oh, here you go. We'll move.
Which is why I had to work with Stacey Marenkovic, which I actually do love.
Oh,
she's probably one of my good friends now. But I was like, you know
number
what?
3.
I'm going to be that club coach that really works with you.
Well, talking about players feeling good, looking good, playing at their best, let's talk about choice kit then. So this is something that was quite interesting. I'm gonna read a tweet. I won't read the whole tweet.
Question as I am sat here dressed like this, and you are sat there with a hat
choice
on.
kit today. They won't let me wear this if I'm on the telly, but on a podcast, this is absolutely brilliant. I can wear my hat. So there was a tweet sent to me because I'm not on X these days. This new inclusive kit is not for me. We're not social netball. Scruffy netballers play scruffy netball. If you want to be professional, act like it. And I actually laughed when I first got that tweet. I was like, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant.
I think I saw that tweet.
I'm also just gonna disclaimer, we didn't lose against Forest by 1 goal because Raz Quashie was in leggings. Just FYI, it wasn't that scruffy. But I'm quite intrigued about this because as someone, and you know, because I played for you, I was always in the wrong colour. If I turned
didn't
up,
have your trainers.
Didn't have my trainers. If I turned up in the wrong thing, it was the right thing. It was a miracle. I'm that person, and it wasn't out of disrespect. You know me. I'm more passionate about netball than half the people in that group were. But I struggled with that. I struggled with the uniformity. I struggled in life with things like that. So the choice kit when Mavericks brought it forward was a no-brainer to me, and I actually keep saying in 3 years' time I don't even think we'll be talking about it. I think women wearing different things is completely normal, like body types, everything. So I'm pro it, but I know that I'm quite open-minded with that. I wanted to get your take on choice kit, and you can be honest because it really doesn't fuss me. Like, I think
the first time I met you were sat on your bed with about 20 fashion magazines around you, and I thought this would be the most boring part of my. I was like, I don't think we're going to be friends.
Is that like, before you took my teddy and wrapped it in
really bad
shape?
Clothes day? Do you know, I had 5 people turn up at the World Cup dressed like me, so I must have a signature.
I used to take more normal clothes on tour than I did kit.
Normal clothes. Do you know, like Tamsin, I'm not even got a strong opinion on it because what I look at is the netball dress that currently at the moment as it stands is the IP of the sport. It distinguishes us from any other sport. I feel that it's the IP of the sport. The other thing I see is that there's 3 points for me. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the commercial asset of the netball dress is huge. Look at the space we can commercially sell on a netball dress that can't be sold on a shorts and shirt. So from a commercial branding point of view, I think we own them 2 rights. The third part of me is the uniformity of it. So, you know, you say there's no I in team. Great thing for me is, but branding of kit and the way a team walks out has always been the biggest instigator for me for success. I was around one of the biggest brands all my life, Manchester United, okay? I walked there, everything they did was about the brand, the kit, success. You know, when they went down to Wembley, they all had the same suit, they all had the same shoes. It was driven. Even for me around the dress, it was about the presentation. You know, when I got presented with my first dress, that is the thing. I've been in situations where no England players and no club players want anybody else in the pathway to ever wear that dress until they get to that point. So the build of me is so strong around that. So the other thing is about the uniformity of the team. So you saw Jamaica did it. I think they're the most diverse team in respect of they've come out in leggings and a vest. And I think to myself, if we are going to go diverse, I have a strong branding, and that the difference in kit wouldn't happen in my team, because if that's what we're doing, we all do it. I have seen, and you know, there's a lot of players who have said, I've been at a surface training where they've not had the matching kit on. And what happens is it screams power to me. You know, when you watch the Silver Ferns, like when I first walked out, my first impression was the power of the colour and the power of them walking out in that branded kit. So I don't think, it's not that, I didn't watch that netball game, I didn't watch your game on Saturday and go, oh my God, they've lost that, because I actually was watching the netball, genuinely were watching the netball. And I know G had leggings on, and I know Raz, I don't know if anybody else had it on.
That was it.
But it stems from the leadership of the person that's taking the team. As I said to you in the last podcast, if any team were going to be diversity and push that, it would be you. You walked out in a bobble hat as a head coach, like I remember wearing in 40-degree heat. Do you know what I mean?
And you look good though, didn't it?
It looked good. Do you know, but I've no judgment on that. I'm not going to go on X and argue like. But now, as sat here as an MD of Stockport County, the commercial asset, what I'm learning when I'm looking around these clubs, the branding, the commercial asset of that is really powerful, and it's just how we want to sell that and what's accepted. And at the moment, I've walked into mum and dad's house, my dress stands out so differently to all my brothers. Yeah, it stands out so significantly because that is the IP of what I've done through my career, and that for me is quite powerful. But that doesn't mean I've got a strong opinion on it.
Yeah, I think, look, from my point of view, it won't be the death of the dress. And I think there's a few things for me. A, where it comes from, like when you historically look at why females wear skirts and dresses, it's actually worth reading about, because it's really quite interesting.
So does that mean it screams women's sport then?
Well, yeah, there is that element. Yeah. There is that element. Yeah. And this is what I mean. What I'd said before, coming through the ranks as probably a kid, I would not have wanted to wear a dress. I was mad into football. I love wearing shorts and t-shirts, a proper tomboy. And I even remember getting my first skirt and polo t-shirt for netball and thinking, God, I remember we used to wear those dresses that you'd step into with the lycra pants. Oh my God, they were awful.
The swimming costume
the swimming costume. Yeah. I mean, poor anybody that was taller than 5'8", it was a problem,
and
right?
The swimming costume effect when you went to the bathroom when you're nervous is not a good
thing. How are you getting out of that? I mean, if anybody goes out in a nightclub now in a jumpsuit, it's like you have to take someone with you, because you can never. And there's that moment when you're in the toilet and you're like, oh my God, I'm got nothing.
You go out on a date and then it's even worse, and then you've got to get some stranger
How
to do it.
How am I going to do this?
I'm going on dates, Michael.
Anyway, we digress. There we go, Des. So, but I don't think it will be the death of the dress. I think there's plenty of players in our team that absolutely love the dress. I think the biggest thing for me is that, and I keep coming back to this, you know, if I stepped out onto a netball court now, would I want to put a dress on? No, I wouldn't. And I think that's my point. So I do get the element. I do get the informative. I'll talk about Rachel Dunn again. Remember us playing a game and I was coaching, and she was like, you need to wear your hoodie today on the bench. I was like, oh, I've got my leather jacket. She's like, no, you don't look like part of the team. And she was really upset with that. And it was my understanding. I was like, okay, I get it. Like, for her, that was a big deal. And so I did that for her. Still wore my leather jacket over the top. But, you know, I do get that. But then there is an element the other way around that actually not everybody thinks like that. And then there's people like me, and there's people like Raz, and there's people like G that actually, for different reasons, they feel more comfortable in that.
And I think for me, this is where we've changed, you know, and this is the greatest thing about this. Like, them decisions, Tamsin, were made by our coach, and it was autocratic. Now, you have a leadership group there, and they are so hugely part of that voice about what they want for the team, how they want to represent, and you know, that for me is really important. I give you the flip side, Tamsin. I was selected for England at 16, and you know, it was the proudest moment of my life. The worst moment of my life was that I don't know who made this decision. The uniform was to wear a pair of red cycling shorts.
Oh, dear God.
Like, look at me. Do I look like I'd rock red cycling shorts, right? And the T-shirts were not long. Do you know? So I had to go down to my first ever England session, right, in a pair of red cycling shorts. My biggest anxiety was the outfit I was wearing.
Yeah.
Do you know? So on the flip side, because I'd come from a really strict, Miss Edwards, if your trainers weren't white, you were taking them off and playing in your socks. If you didn't have a skirt with your top tucked in, I come from a really strict regime about what success looked like. And I was now made to wear red cycle shorts and a T-shirt to go to England. And I had to do that for 2 years. Now, I wasn't blessed at 16-year-old to have a wide array of female health products. So I hadn't experimented with all the different kinds that were out there. It was my biggest angst. And I used to drive for 4 hours down to Surrey with my mum. And that was my biggest angst. What did I look like in these red cycle shorts? And I'm not going to give you an even look of that because I wouldn't put that on anyone.
No. And I think that for me is why choice kit's important, because 9 out of 10 players will still
bring back the dress,
bring back the dress,
bring back the skirt with the polo. That was what I was screaming for at the time.
Yeah. Well, except mine, I was given the only size they had left, which was a 30-inch, and I was about a 22 at that point, so that was fun as well when I rolled that up 17 times.
That was your choice of kit anyway.
Choice kit. I think the reality is. It's here to stay. I quite like it. I think there's going to be elements about how you can make it more uniformed. Like I said, I don't think the dress is going anywhere anytime soon, and that's
Please don't put them in turquoise leggings though.
That won't. But that was my point. That won't happen. Like everything's black bottoms, and that's the way it's got to be.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I think it was an interest, and it did make me laugh when that tweet was sent to me. Before we go. Star spotting. So first week you mentioned Gabby Logan. Second week, who'd you name drop last week? It was someone. Sue Gordian. This week you've dropped in Stacey Marinkovic, so that's pretty good. I've done Sarah Francis Bayman.
I actually thought I went and saw. It's obviously International Women's Day, week, whatever. And so Story was actually speaking at an event. Oh. Yeah. Do you know she's still competing?
Honestly, it's I walked up the stairs here.
I think I was more amazed at her still competing than I actually was at the event. But I was like, you are just a machine. And
yeah, she is.
Do you know, she said one thing, and this is the interesting thing about us sort of moving into that professionalism, that she said the one thing that she was able and why she's still able to sustain sport, and she's like in massive roles now. She's chair of Lancashire Cricket. She actually sat there and she just said, the actual key thing for me was that actually doing something else apart from my sport give me mental stability. So it'd be interesting to see in many years. So a lot of these athletes don't have a lot of external. I'm a big pusher for that, to have external, and I didn't actually know that it was generally because mental stability. And I thought, this is actually key. I wonder where the state of our mental health will be in a few years' time, because we're not creating mental stability around these athletes by giving them something else to focus on rather than just their sport.
I think this is going to be a good
interesting
talking point in the next few weeks.
This is why I don't think you should be doing a podcast, Tamsin. Because you would be mental unstable, and that would be a very joyful for me to see at this moment in time.
Please don't give anybody else any more ammunition. The amount of comments I'm going to have to defend and deflect later on. But it's all good, guys. Well, that was a very good name drop. Thank you. I enjoyed that. This week we are heading into round 2. Friday the 6th of March, 7 o'clock, we've got LexisNexis Dragons versus London Pulse. That will be on Sky Sports and Stream and YouTube. Also on Friday, 7:30, NIC Leeds Rhinos take on Loughborough Lightning. That's Sky Sports Mix and YouTube. Then we move to Saturday the 7th, 5 o'clock, big one, AO Manchester Thunder. We've got an away game up there with London Mavericks. I'll see you there. Yeah. That's on BBC Sport. And then Sunday the 8th to finish off the weekend, 4 o'clock, Nottingham Forest versus Birmingham Panthers. We'll see if they can back that up. That's on Sky Sports Stream and YouTube. So big rounds coming up. Also exciting because the SSN's about to start as well in a couple of weeks. We're going to speak to Sarah Francis Bayman, fingers crossed, next week, so we can chat about that and all the stuff about big jobs, the big job she's doing, the big job you're doing, and how that is helpful for athletes as well. So yeah, thank you very much for joining me. Can we keep you down in London? I really like this. I get a green tea, I get a couch.
I got a free coffee on entry.
Wow. Sky looking after
I
you.
normally have to pay.
I bet that's not true. I'll get you on at Thunder, Trey. Surely you've got a gold card. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, you can listen to our podcast every week off the court on your usual streaming services.